Hello, everybody. So we are going to start a new unit today, or at least a couple of my classes are going to be. One or two of my other classes, they're finishing up our prior unit, the script work unit. Okay, so today we're going to start learning about Greek theater, okay, our history unit, which is one of my favorite units. The way I see it, no matter if it's, history of theater or just, our country's history or the world's history, you kind of have to know where you've been to know where you're going. So this is super important. Okay, so we're going to get started. I am going to ask you to take a look at the questions below this video. You're going to be answering them while watching this. So feel free to pause this video at all so that you can answer those questions. So I'm going to share my screen and let's get started. Okay, so a little intro to Greek theater. Okay, so the purpose of Greek theater, it was not just to entertain people. Keeping in mind, they didn't have video games back then, they didn't have TV, they didn't have a whole lot of sources of entertainment. So theater, although it was important, it wasn't only just to entertain people. They also linked Greek theater with sacred rituals. So they considered theater to be super important. With Athenian social and political system. So it was super, super important, not just to go and watch a show, but a little bit deeper than that, a little bit further than that. Plays, they were written for the annual spring festival of Dionysus, okay? Super important. Now, Dionysus is a god. I don't know if you've ever, researched them at all, or, maybe in your other classes you've talked about them, but Dionysus was the god of, wine, of parties, of, pleasures, something like that. So Dionysus, they wanted to honor this god, okay, by putting on this festival, this spring festival. So if you want to pause this, you're more than welcome to answer the first 3 questions, okay, and then we will move on when you're ready. But I'm going to keep going. Okay, so this is what the actual theater looked like back then. Keeping in mind this picture is more of like present day, now that it's kind of in ruins because that is very, very old. Plays were performed in outdoor arena style theaters. So if you think of an arena, think of, any kind of sporting event, right? You have people surrounding most of the sides, okay? So performances took place during daylight hours. And if you can guess why this is, it's because there was no lights. It was way back when. They didn't have any kind of lights. So the only light that they had was the sun. So when they did these shows, it had to be during the day. Okay, now, there's a couple terms that are super important. It basically just kind of breaks down what makes up a Greek theater. So the first one is called the skene, okay? Or, translated, it means tent. So it basically covers the structures where the actors stored costumes and masks. So this is basically like their backstage, if you kind of relate it to our stage at the high school or any kind of stage. All right, the second one, the paraskinia, okay, is beside the skene, okay, is the wing. So it's basically off stage. So if you think of our theater, it's either your stage left or your stage right, off stage, okay? So that would be kind of off this way or off this way. The parados, or the passageways, they're different parts of the stage where actors took to enter and exit the stage, okay? So ramps on the side of the stage between the skene and the audience, okay? So a lot of the times they would either get on stage and get off, they'll have ramps, or they might go through these little entrances that I'm pointing to. That's kind of their way on and off stage. Okay, and then one that's kind of fun, one machine that they used back then, it wasn't technically a machine, but it was on wheels and it would move, so they kind of considered that to be a machine. It's called a periactoid. So that sounds kind of like a type of dinosaur or something. But basically, they were large pillars that had the set or the background of the play painted on it. So when they went to a different setting within the play, they went from the forest to, I don't know, the city, they would change or turn the periactoid. So you would see a different scene on the background. Okay, so one of my questions I have for you is to describe what a Greek theater looks like. Basically, what do you see? So pause the video and I want you to take a look right here at this picture. What do you see? Maybe the size of the theater itself, how many people, you want to take a guess that is there? Maybe the way that the stage is organized. What does it look like? Does it look fancy? What do you think? So pause the video and take a minute and write this in. So describe what a Greek theater looks like. What do you see? I'm going to keep rolling. You're more than welcome to pause this video whenever you have to. The major elements of Greek drama we're going to start talking about, because the Greek outdoor theaters, they were massive, they were humongous. Actors could not depend on large facial expressions or vocal inflections. So in other words, when we're on our stage and I tell, any of us, any actors, whether we're in class or doing a show, I say you need big facial expressions because you want the person in the very back to see what your face is doing or what emotion you're feeling. Way back when, these theaters were so big, I want you to think like almost 3 times the size of a football field. It was huge. So the person way in the back could not even see hardly the person on stage, let alone hear them. So what they had to do instead was wear a mask, something that was very emphasized so you can really see their faces, see the mask's expression, I mean. Okay, the next part, we're going to talk about acting, how these people actually acted on stage during this time. So actors, they relied on large, simple physical gestures and on their ability to voice the poetry of the script. So in other words, if we're acting in a play on stage, you try to make whatever movement you're doing seem very natural because you want the play to seem very lifelike, whatever it is that you're acting in. Now, this style of theater, because the theater was huge, they needed to do these like humongous over the top movements that could be seen from way in the back. So it didn't seem very natural, but that's just what they had to do so that the audience could see them. And their ability to voice the poetry of the script, they had to really project their voice as loud as they could and as clearly as they could, whatever was in their script. And during this time, females, women weren't allowed to act on stage just yet. Later in history, they will, but at this point, they were not allowed, so only males. And if they had female roles, typically males would play those roles, wearing a female-looking mask. Okay, now this is super important. There is a particular part, a particular acting role. It's called the chorus. Okay, now this is one of my questions. Who was the chorus in a Greek play and who did they represent? Now I'm gonna tell you, the chorus, if you look over in this picture, they're kind of creepy looking, right? They're wearing the masks, right? Because the masks have to be kind of over the top. You got to be able to see them from the back. The chorus is approximately 15 actors, okay? They would all act together. They would say the same things at the same time, okay? So imagine 15 people saying something all at once. Now, who these people are, they represented like the townspeople, okay? Or other groups of people in the play. So, they represented a whole town, these 15 people. Okay, and I'm going to show you an example of what this looks like in a second. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Festival of Dionysus. Okay, we mentioned that earlier in the PowerPoint. So what is this? What is this festival and how does it work? So this annual festival, so it happened every year, usually lasted 5 to 6 days. So it was almost a week long that this festival would be going on. They consider this a national holiday that people would like, they gotta go, they gotta see the plays that they're gonna perform. Each day, a different playwright or a different play was featured, okay? The dramatist, you know, or the person who wrote the plays or put the play together would offer 4 plays, a trilogy or 3 tragedies centered around one theme, okay, which is, you know, a drama, or a satire or a farce. That's a comedy, that's a funny play that made fun of the same tragic figures and provided the needed comic relief. So during this festival, some of these really heavy plays that they would put on, they were a little intense. So they also needed not only, you know, dramatic, heavy, tragic plays, but also something light to kind of, you know, take the edge off. Comedies, they were sometimes given in the afternoon just because they watched the really heavy play in the morning and they needed something a little light to end the day in the afternoon. And prizes were awarded for the best writer, okay, the best play, the best dramatist. You know, they would etch their name in stone for the world to see forever and ever, and that was, you know, their prize, okay? So I have a video I'm gonna attach below, and it is, basically an example of the chorus and kind of how they work. Okay, so I'm gonna have you log out of here in a second and you're going to watch that. And then we are gonna get into the rest of this next week. Now, if you have any questions about anything, feel free to email me. Please, if you need to, go back and watch this video again and answer any of the questions that you have below this video, okay? Thank you very much. Have a great week.